first question, and 2-minute time limit. What is your long-term goal for education in South Dakota? What do you think education will look like in 2014? Mr. Kanuki.
You want to try that one? Or this?
I'll try this one. Is it working out? All right. Well, first of all, I want to, you know, these guys up here, they have been in this legislature in the past. And they're going to talk numbers and everything, and that's good. We need to get that stuff outlined. And I'm going to try to bring some things from a teacher's perspective. Because my wife and I always visit quite a bit about this issue. And you know, we know some of the things that happen. I know when my wife first started out and she moved to town, and she had her and 4 kids, and what she earned as a teacher, her salary there would not pay for renting a house and all the utilities and all that stuff that went on there. So I mean, we know firsthand some of the problems that we have in the teaching industry. As far as in 2014, the long-term goal, I would like to, I know we want our kids to go to college. We want to encourage that. But I also know that there are kids out there that aren't college bound. So one of the things I want to do is work more on maybe like a VOTEC type of issues, you know, maybe work along those lines with the high schools and with some of the vocational VOTEC schools in the state.
Thank you for the question. My view is that by 2014, I am hopeful that we have made substantial progress in investing in K-12 education. That's going to require that we make sacrifices in other areas of state government. I'm prepared to do that. But it's so very important that we start now. We should have started a long time ago. The saying goes, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is today. And so we need to start investing in K-12 education as soon as possible. The idea that you had 3% of the rate of inflation, whichever is less, taken away from you in the past legislative session is an insult. It's an insult to every educator and every child in the public school system in South Dakota. It should never have been allowed to happen. As I said, we opted instead to build a new prison in Rapid City and to fork over tens of millions of dollars to a crude oil pipeline as a supposed incentive to come from North Dakota to Nebraska, as if they needed an incentive, instead of investing in South Dakota. Specifically, there are changes that we need to make. I proposed a bill in which we would require the Appropriations Committee to adopt the education budget on the 26th legislative day of the session. Instead of what we do now, which is to wait to the last second and then give K through 12 the scraps, what we really need to do is honor the Constitution when it talks about education and its importance. And the way to do that is to adopt an education budget and then build the rest of state government around it. That's exactly what Iowa does, and you've seen the results in Iowa. They really do invest in K through 12 education. I have a lot of other ideas, but I see my time's up.
Well, the goal to me is clear. Okay, there we go. And that's to create an internationally competitive student. You know, in my opinion, it's great to compare ourselves across the nation to other states, and of course we compare very well. But when we begin to compare ourselves to China and India and Finland and Japan and Korea, how do we compare? We have to ask that question, because I believe that if we could create an internationally competitive student today, we will have internationally competitive businesses 10, 20, and 30 years from now, and people who will be working in those businesses right here in this state. We have to get our kids future ready, and that has to be our goal. Now, we definitely have some challenges, and I believe with that comes not only getting the right strategy in our curriculum, having more dual enrollment, because only 38% of our schools offer dual enrollment classes. We have to integrate that post-secondary into our K-12 system, but we have to make sure our future generations of teachers are going to want to come into this profession. That's the bottom line. And we have to fund education out of the first dollars in the budget. Because in my opinion, if we develop the right plan and connect our economic plan with our education plan, we can go to the taxpayers in this state and show them what the return on investment is for their tax dollars going into education. It's all a matter of strategy. I would repeal the school consolidation law that we have in the books. I believe that's the wrong way to look at community development. And we have to have a statewide strategic plan that builds this whole state. I referred earlier to 2/3 of our communities not growing. I want to see 2/3 growing by 2014.
Thank you.
I think it's probably easier to see if I stand. I think what we all want is better educated students, more of them graduating. But again, I think that education is like much in life. It's, in the end, fairly simple. The key to having a better educated student is having strong, good teachers. And in order to do that, we have to provide our K-12 system with monetary resources. My proposal this year was Senate Bill 124, which would have directly tied the per pupil amount to the state's general fund revenue. In the long run, it's not realistic to think that schools are going to do materially better than the state's general fund revenue. And in the long run, it's definitely not fair to have the schools do worse than our state's general fund revenue growth. To me, I worked with Senator Heideprim on a lot of education issues. We frequently vote together on education issues. I have disagreed on the thought of having an artificial deadline for the budget because I think what we need to do is actually just fix the formula. We need to just tie the per pupil amount to the state's general fund revenue. Then we don't have to wonder what our education budget is. Then we won't have to worry about, are we getting to the end of the session without knowing. I think that's an eminently fair idea. It's a shoe that will never pinch because it is tied directly to the state's general fund revenue. I think that's the long run solution to give us better teachers and better educated students.
Thank you. And Lieutenant Governor.
Well, I think someone else up here stated a minute ago the same thing I believe, is that most of us want our young people, want our children, our grandchildren to stay in South Dakota and grow up and live near us. And important to that is having job opportunities and having the education that gives them the opportunity to find and succeed in their job. And education is key to those kinds of things. I'm committed to increasing funding to education. I think if you examine the record of the last 7 years, you'll see that aside from this year where the budget problems made it impossible to fulfill the 1.2% increase in Medicaid growth being what it was and revenues falling, the Governor Rounds and I have, and the legislature have spent $130 million more than the formula would call for. And I think it's appropriate that education be at the front of the line when there is funding to be had. But South Dakotans require and demand that we live within our means. And so when the money's not there, it's not there. And when there are folks going on to the Medicaid rolls and onto the food stamp rolls and having trouble with their lives, we need to be sensitive to their frailties and their needs too. I think our students are lucky to have a committed teaching force. My wife was a teacher. I know I benefited from committed, dedicated teachers, and our students are excelling because of that, and for that I thank you.